And again, we welcome all of you this morning. If you've heard this for a second time, my apologies. I'm Attorney Don McPartland. I am the chairman of the board of the Waterbury Regional Chamber. And welcome to the Chamber's annual legislative summit. Thank you all for joining us this morning on this brand new virtual event platform, which hopefully we have the kinks ironed out now. The screen will look like a traditional Zoom webinar for our panelists today, but our attendees are joining us through this new virtual venue platform that should include dedicated pages for our speaker information, our sponsors, and more. The attendees should be able to submit questions on the bottom of the Q&A feature, and if you have any issues like we apparently had this morning, we will work them out as we go. We are very fortunate to be joined by our Connecticut Governor, Ned Lamont, along with several members of our region's legislative delegation. This morning's event provides you, our chamber members, with an opportunity to hear from lawmakers, share your concerns, and of course, stay informed. The chamber would not be able to put programs like this on without the tremendous support of our amazing sponsors. And today's platinum sponsor is St. Mary's Hospital. Here to say a few words on behalf of St. Mary's is Dr. Stephen Schneider, president of St. Mary's Hospital. Doctor, please join us again for some comments.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Since I don't write usually what I say and it's extemporaneous, this may not sound exactly the same as the first time, but what I just want to communicate is how important the chamber is to this community, how important the chamber is to St. Mary's Hospital specifically. We're delighted to be a sponsor. Lynn has done just a stellar job in really kind of keeping the contacts and communications of the business leaders and the business community together through a time when it's very difficult for all of us to get together. And some of her creative ideas that she has kind of promulgated out through the community, for example, the way she supported the restaurant business has just been extremely valuable to all of us. St. Mary's thrives along with the community itself. The community suffers, we suffer as well, and it's been a very tough year, but we're now heading into a great new year. And the value the chamber brings is not only bringing us all together, but bringing excellent speakers and leaders to all of us on a regular basis. And it's especially exciting that Governor Lamont has taken time out from his schedule to be with us, and I'm looking forward to hearing from him. So thank you very much. We're happy to be a part of things.
Thank you, Dr. Schneider, and thank you, by the way, for being the platinum sponsor. It is a very important aspect, and we appreciate it greatly. It is now my privilege to introduce today's keynote speaker. Edward Minor Ned Lamont, Jr. was sworn in January 9th, 2019, the 89th governor of Connecticut. He is the first business owner in decades to hold the state's top executive post. After what was in retrospect a relatively normal first year in office, Governor Lamont was tasked in 2020 with leading the state through the most unpredictable and politically tumultuous year many of us have ever experienced. From issuing executive orders to creating task forces, Governor Lamont has been forced to make many difficult decisions on behalf of the state, including the residents and businesses, through this COVID-19 pandemic. He has done so with continued commitment to keeping Connecticut informed and for what may come next. Much has changed since back in 2020 when we had the legislative summit and the governor joined us. We've been extremely grateful to have the governor with us before and of course today, and we focus on what he's focused on, and that's the governor's budget priorities for this year, including defeating COVID-19, creating a more affordable Connecticut, investing in our future, and modernizing state government, and focusing on economic growth that benefits us all. So without further ado, it's my privilege to introduce the governor. We'll have him have some opening remarks, and then we'll have some questions. And again, you're entitled to put those through the Q&A. We've also had some questions submitted in advance. So Governor, thank you so much for joining us. My apologies for the delay and for the little technical glitch, but we are thrilled to have you here this morning, Governor.
Hey, Don, good morning. Lynn, great to see you. Welcome to Zoom world. We have these glitches all the time. And hey, Steve, really good to see you. Steve and I were together at the Arts Magnet just, I think, a week or so ago. And it just spoke volumes to me about Waterbury and what I love about Waterbury. That we're rolling out the vaccination strategy there. And, you know, starting out with people over the age of 75, our computer interface, what they call the VAMS, was a little complicated, especially for people of a certain age. I know that feeling. Steve and Waterbury got together, created the telephone networks. You can dial 211 or 311. And if that wasn't good enough, you could come on in and we'd fill out the form for you to make it easier for you to get vaccinated. And to me, that just spoke volumes about what I love about Waterbury. You've got more positive can-do spirit than any town I visit. And you found a complication in terms of older people getting vaccinated and making a big effort to solve that problem. For that, Steve, I was so appreciative of your great efforts there. And you've got an amazing delegation representing a greater Waterbury area up in Hartford. And look forward to seeing you guys too. We haven't gotten together in quite a while. Let me just give you a couple of highlights, and I'd love questions more, but Don, as you pointed out, number one is COVID. If we don't get that right, nothing else matters. We were very aggressive on testing. We got more of our people tested than just about any state in the country. You say, well, what difference does that make? It helped us stay ahead of the virus, helped us see where the virus was spreading earlier. In some cases, down Danbury, for example, led to some early quarantines that helped tamp things down. So you saw, North and South Dakota and Southern California and Southern Florida and other places where maybe you had 30, 40, 50% infection rates. We never got above, I think, 7%, maybe on a weekly average. And now we're down at about 3%. And that's also in part the fact that Connecticut's been a leader when it comes to vaccinations. We have about 12% or so of our population vaccinated now. A majority of the folks over the age of 75 and more and more people over the age of 65. And I hope if we could ramp up the number of vaccines we get from the federal government, which looks good, that we should be able to get the 65 and aboves all vaccinated within the next 3-4 weeks. And why do you say above 65? Why is that a priority? Because, almost 90% of fatalities and severe complications related to COVID were in that cohort. So now that we have every nursing home, not with not one, but 2 vaccines, the numbers are going down dramatically in terms of hospitalizations and coming down in terms of fatalities in our nursing homes. And I think being very proactive on COVID from an early date allowed us to keep more of our economy open safely than any of our neighbors. And so we kept manufacturing open. We never closed that down. Outdoor construction, never closed that down. We have more of our kids going to school, in-person education, wherever possible. Over 95% of our schools have some in-person option. It's up to the parents whether their kids, feel safe or they feel safe for their kids there. And thanks to Miguel Cardona, who's our next Secretary of Education, we got well over 100,000 laptops and Wi-Fi hotspots. So kids didn't fall behind. If they weren't able to go to school, they were better able to telelearn. But to be blunt, that's a poor substitute for being in the classroom. And that's why we're making that continuing a very big effort. Just a couple other things I see next up is taxes, spending, and labor discussion. Right now, the amazing Melissa McCall, comes from Waterbury, by the way, our head of OPM. We've put in place a budget, a 2-year budget that does a couple of things. One, we're one of the few states in the country that had a balanced budget, not just last year, but this coming year. That's a really good thing in terms of fiscal stability, in a sense that Connecticut's, slowly getting its fiscal house in order, but I'm not going to exaggerate. We got some enormous unfunded liabilities that go back generations, so we got some work to do. But that said, with help from Melissa, with help from input from legislators and the business community, to be blunt, we put in place a budget over the next 2 years that's in balance without any broad-based tax increases. And assuming we're able to hold to that, I'd be the first governor in 30 years, 25 years that didn't have a big tax increase. And I think that sends a signal about what type of a state we are, and sends a signal why tens of thousands of people are moving back into Connecticut for the first time in decades. We had our best year in terms of move-ins that we've had in a decade. And that compounds, that's a virtuous cycle. So that meant a lot more, some additional tax revenue came in that reduced our deficit for this year and the coming year as well. Spending, look, overall, we've held the line on spending. We've got significant efficiencies, as Josh Jabal, our head of DAS, Department of Administrative Services. Usually it's more of a political person in that job. He was 12 years at IBM, putting in place investments in technology to bring our workforce into the 21st century. And that allows us to do more with less. And I think that's part of the savings that you see there. And I also got to remind people when it comes to what we're doing on spending, with a lot of help from the federal government, especially when it comes to education. I got to keep faith with our towns and cities. A lot of our municipalities have been hit really hard. Significant investments in education. I think Waterbury will certainly see 20 plus million more than they've ever gotten before. And I want you to inspire us. What do you do with this money? It's 2-year federal money. How do we get these kids back in the game? A lot of them haven't been in school on a regular basis, going on close to a year. What do we do with a really aggressive summer program? What do we do to catch up on that learning? What do we do with the social and emotional needs in our schools? We'll be asking our superintendents across the state to use this money to make a difference for kids. A lot of kids who have been left behind. A lot of Black and brown kids who weren't really able to make it to school on a regular basis. I want to make sure that this is an opportunity to get them back in the game. Let's see, transportation, infrastructure, energy. We've got a revised plan out there to fix our transportation fund. We inherited some leaky buckets that were slowly going bankrupt in this state. And one that I really am committed to solving is the transportation fund. It's out of money. It's out of money within a year. I think you know why. People driving less. It's really fueled by the gas tax, so to speak. That gas tax revenue is going down every year, and our needs are going up. So I'd love your feedback on this. You can hit me on it in the questions, but I've got to find a way to solve this. And so we've put in place a highway user fee on big tractor trailer trucks. Don't let anybody tell you it's small local delivery trucks. No, it's the big multi-axle tractor trailer trucks. And that would raise us about $90 to $100 million. And I can leverage that 5 times because, whatever you think of, one thing Donald Trump and Joe Biden agreed upon was the need to invest in infrastructure. And I'm very certain that there's going to be significant resources available to the states, probably on an 80-20 match. So if we can come up with our share of the infrastructure funding, that's the 20%, we'll be able to leverage that many-fold. I think a lot of you know what happened over the last few years when we just expanded that choke point on I-84 and accelerated the commute from Hartford down to Waterbury. It saves about 20 minutes in each direction. You don't need extra lanes all over. You just have to fix those choke points. And our other commitment, if we can put this funding in place, is to get more regular 2-way rail service on the Waterbury line. Waterbury is going to be a big piece of our future. The whole Naugatuck Valley is expanding and growing. A lot of excitement there, and transportation is going to be part of that solution. On infrastructure, the other piece, let's say a year ago we thought, hey, internet access is great. I need it to shop on Amazon. My kid likes to download movies. Today, I think we realize more than ever that a broadband access to each and every member of our community, nobody can be left behind there. It was so key to education over the last 12 months. And I think you're going to find it's important to education heretofore going forward. Telehealth, we made a big deal about that. The last thing I wanted were seniors going back and forth in the height of the pandemic. And we made sure that a telehealth, Steve, was on a par with an in-hospital or a clinic visit, and to make sure that became more readily accessible. And like I said before, with the tens of thousands of people moving to the state of Connecticut, some of them moving from places like New York City, telecommuting is really important. They don't have to go to New York 5 days a week. And all of a sudden that makes towns like Waterbury, Danbury, all along the valley, that much more appealing to a next generation of entrepreneurs. So that is really an important investment we're making. And finally, I see you're going to do health and human services. A couple of things. I mean, if this COVID reminded us of anything, that affordable healthcare is not just a good thing to do, we ought to try harder. I think we realize that healthcare has got to be universal, that your health is my health. And if there is someone in the community that doesn't have healthcare, there's somebody in the community that didn't feel like they could get tested, there's somebody in the community that didn't feel like they could get vaccinated, that was an incredible risk to them and their family and a risk to our entire community. We learned that, or reminded of that during the last 12 months. So I'm making a big effort to expand access to healthcare and doing what I can to lower healthcare costs for small business. A lot of folks are on this phone today. Probably one of the most important things we're going to do, and working with Charlie Baker, who's the governor up in Massachusetts, is to cap pharma costs, pharmaceutical costs, drug costs. And, right now they come out, they get a good rate of return on their introductory price, but then some of them spike up over the course of the next 15, 20 years. And we're going to try and cap that, hold down the underlying costs of pharmaceuticals, make healthcare more affordable. I will tell you, this last year, we had the smallest increase in our insurance rates, probably in the history of the state, or certainly in my recent memory, and I'm old, so I have a pretty long memory. So doing what we can to make sure that we hold down those healthcare costs and make it more broadly accessible to people who otherwise can't afford it. We're going to increase the price supports on the exchange, so those subsidies, so more people will be able to get health care going forward. And finally, I see human services. I don't know if not-for-profits are well represented on here, but they have stood up along with our hospitals in a significant way over the last 12 months. With the help from the feds, we got additional resources to our hospitals for all the extra work they did and some of the risks they took treating COVID patients. And the same for our not-for-profits. We got them, I think, about 13% more money in this current calendar year than they had previously, to help pay them for a lot of the extra work they're doing. And we got a little bit of extra money for the not-for-profits going forward. But just remember what they're doing. They're not-for-profits. They are folks taking care of the most distressed in our community. You see what's happening in terms of the social isolation. We hear that in our schools. You see that reflected sometimes in violence in our shootings in our street. You see that, you hear that on our 211 calls. So when it comes to folks in domestic abuse situation, when it comes to drug addiction, when it comes to folks with intellectual and physical disabilities, we're making a special effort with our not-for-profits to take care of these people. And I'll just tell you that last 12 months, I've never been so proud of the state of Connecticut. I really think people rallied together in an important way that puts us in a pretty good position as we work our way through what I hope is the 8th or 9th inning of COVID. And we end up stronger than we've been before, with a good budget position, our businesses ready to hit the ground running. And I think that's going to position Connecticut well for the foreseeable future.
Governor, thank you so much for those introductory remarks. It's nice to hear some positive news on the COVID front, certainly, and I'm glad to hear that you think we're in the 8th or 9th inning. That's exciting for all of us, certainly. So we've got a number of questions pouring in, Governor. I'm going to go back and forth between some previously submitted and those that are coming in. First question, how are Connecticut state universities aligning themselves to support manufacturing and STEM initiatives to support a viable workforce in Connecticut's manufacturing sector?
Yeah, that is a big priority in our budget was workforce development. You know, when I first became governor, and I learned this by talking to all of you, we had a disconnect between what people were trained for, what the jobs were out there, especially in manufacturing, especially in advanced manufacturing. So we got Kelly Valeris, we got Colin Cooper, both of whom come out of manufacturing, by the way, come out of the private sector. They're taking the lead on our workforce development for us. Thanks to the feds, we got significant additional revenues for our CSU system and UConn, doubling down on training people for the jobs that are out there, working very closely, not just with the big guys like Pratt and EB and Sikorsky, but also folks in the supply chain, so we can do a better job of training people for the jobs there. We put in place, a program so you can get debt-free community college, make that easier for you. And Don, the thing that made the most sense to me, to tell you the truth, is what we're doing in terms of the certificate program, because I'm finding, talking to a lot of folks in manufacturing, you don't always need 2 full years of community college or 4 full years at, Western or CCSU. Sometimes an 18-week certificate program is what you need to have that laser welding skill, which that, jobber really needs right now. And that means more people can get access to the skills they need at less cost and less time. So that's a big focus of what we're going to try and do over the next year.
Thank you, Governor. Additional question. With the pandemic, you touched on this a little earlier in your remarks, by the way. With the pandemic having a noticeable impact on remote work, how is Connecticut capitalizing on this new trend and bringing in remote workers as a tax base?
Yeah, 2 things. I mean, one, I think I said, you already see the momentum shifting. We've had probably, close to 20,000 families move to Connecticut, and not all to Stamford. I mean, all over the state of Connecticut, in the Valley and Waterbury and beyond. I think that's a good thing. You see that reflected in our schools. And I think telecommuting is part of that. Also, I would tell you that we're relooking at our state footprint, and we've done a lot with telecommuting, and our workforce is shrinking, and we've got a lot of extra capacity in terms of buildings in our state coffers, so to speak. So we've sold 1 building in downtown Hartford. We got 2 others that we're vacating as we consolidate space. We're closing, as you know, Northern, 1 correctional facility, another type of physical presence where we're able to downsize as well. So I think you're going to see a significant consolidation in terms of physical space as telecommuting is a permanent part of our future.
Thank you, Governor. Appreciate that. Let's take one from the field coming in this morning. Let's see. With many towns' snow budgets running out and several storms coming in the next couple of weeks, where will the towns get help to pay for the added expense this year?
Well, first of all, we're fully funding all of our schools in terms of municipal aid. And I think you can see more coming from the federal government. So it'll be pretty good resources for our cities. But be that as it may, come back to Melissa and I if you think that there's a real shortfall there, and see what we can do to help.
Thank you, Governor. Vibrant downtown centers are the lifeblood of cities like Waterbury. What are the next steps for revitalizing them and encouraging growth?
I think one of the bizarre upsides of what's happened in the last year is outdoor dining. I know it's a little weird to say that in February. I appreciate that. We're having the coldest weekend of the year. But I've seen a lot of sleepy towns come to life. I've seen a lot of young people sitting outside. I think that's part of what you're seeing for our downtown. But more seriously, we're going to make significant investments in terms of downtown areas, in particular, transit-oriented development. Make sure there's more affordable housing in and around transportation hubs, bringing young people back, make sure the teachers, firemen, cops can afford to live in the town where they were raised or where they're working. That's going to be a significant piece of our priorities. And look, I was pretty tough the first 2 years on bonding. As you know, I had a debt diet. I said every governor likes to borrow more, and that's why we have these escalating fixed costs. But I'm going to do a little more on affordable housing in this coming cycle. I'm doing it because, we got close to a 10% unemployment rate. It's a different situation. And I do think with 2% interest rates, now is the time to get people back to work and make those investments. If I can find a little better housing for folks who otherwise wouldn't have it, that's a big plus.
Thank you, Governor. Now the question just came in. Caterers and event venues in the state are watching their spring and summer events being canceled once again. Owners of these venues are forced to manage phone calls and ask them what they can do every day. Major retail chains, restaurants, and airports have all found ways to open safely. When do you expect to be able to provide a path to reopen social events and gatherings in the state for these businesses?
Yeah, no, thank you. I think the answer to that is soon, but let me tell you what my thinking was. We opened our restaurants early, first for outdoor dining, then for indoor dining, lowered capacity. We did that more aggressively with our neighbors, and that seemed to work pretty well. We found during the height of the pandemic that big indoor events, in bars, by the way, did seem to be a little more prone to flare-ups and super spreader type things because they're perhaps a little less policed. You're probably not wearing a mask. You're probably having a light, cool beverage. So we were hesitant on that. But today, we now have an infection rate that's probably less than 4%. And the event planners, like my daughter was going to get married last year, so I know this firsthand. She had to postpone it. I got to give you some guidance. And here's the problem, Don. I'm going to say, look, let's say on March 15th, if the metrics all hold up, I think you're going to be able to have more people on indoor events and a lot more people on outdoor events, since outdoor is so much safer, subject to the metrics. So I can't take all the risk off the table. It's not like I know what the South African flu is going to do in a month from now, but I am going to do my best to say, right now, given where we are, I anticipate on March 15th, things are going to start opening up.
Well, nice to hear that, Governor. We know it's a fluid situation. We understand that. We know you're doing the best you can with the projections, and we certainly appreciate that. So turning to energy, Governor, we got a question that came in. How could you ensure that we maintain the viability of Connecticut's energy efficiency programs?
Well, one thing we did was we stopped raiding the fund, and we put all the money that was supposed to go to energy efficiency into energy efficiency. And I'll tell you why I like it. I mean, I care about the polar bears and the icebergs, but energy efficiency takes it right to home, the importance of what that means from an environmental point of view and your energy costs. There are a lot of middle-class working folks who are spending 10, 20% of their paycheck on electricity and heating. And we're finding that through insulation and changing out some of those appliances, we can cut that in half. So I think it's a really good investment, not just in terms of our global footprint or our warming footprint, but it's also really important for middle-class households to keep it more affordable. So we're fully funding that and doubling down with the Green Bank to make other investments.
Good to hear it, Governor. We'll keep an eye on that as well. You touched on this question earlier in your intro, but maybe expand on it a tiny bit. It's on infrastructure. The question is, Governor, what policies are being put in place for the growth of the Naugatuck Valley and Waterbury branch line of Metro North Commuter Railroad?
Well, as you know, we spent the last couple of years improving the signalization and little end arounds there so you can have two-way train service. And then there was a question about, do we have to order up new trains or can we better utilize the trains we've got? I'm afraid I'm a bit of a cheapskate, so I said we can better utilize the trains we've got. And I think over the last year, I'll be blunt, Don, what's happened is automobile traffic is almost back to where it was pre-pandemic, but rail traffic, people taking the railroad, is still down about 80%. And that's not good news, but it does mean I have now some excess train capacity. So I'd like to think within the next year and a half, we'll have another route that we'll be able to offer up on the Waterbury line.
Thank you, Governor. Question in from one of our attendees, actually one of our board members, Rich DuPont, states, I'm receiving call after call from manufacturers asking as essential workers when their employees will be eligible to be vaccinated. Attendance due to exposure, positive tests, and quarantine protocols having an impact on manufacturers to deliver a product, including medical device materials and PPE.
Yeah, Rich. Obviously, your essential workers never closed down during the pandemic and are on a priority list when it comes to getting the vaccines. But I don't want to beat around the bush. CDC created a priority list, which is about over a third of our states. So what we've done is we've done it based upon age, to date, and we're waiting for guidance on the CDC, how we prioritize once the 65 and above are substantially taken care of. But I hear this from teachers, I hear this from daycare, I hear this from restaurant workers, I hear this from advanced manufacturing. And the real answer to this is, look, what they do in some other states is say, first come, first serve, here's the portal, sign up, and that's created just a big mess. And you see hundreds of cars waiting in line in Florida and stuff like that. So I think we have to keep the aperture a little bit narrowed. But the good news, and I'm on the phone a lot with Pfizer and talking to Jeff Zients from the COVID team in the White House today, we are going to see substantially more vaccinations over the near term. I don't know whether near term is 30 days or 90 days. And that's going to allow us to get a lot more people vaccinated a lot more quickly, including folks on the front lines in advanced manufacturing.
Good to hear that, Governor. Now, this is bound to be a hot topic coming forward, Governor, so I'll pop it out there. A question we had presented. A public option bill was recently introduced to the Connecticut General Assembly. What is your stance on public option? And how will Connecticut ensure the public option would maintain its financial health without negatively affecting our private health insurers and the taxpayer?
Yeah, a couple of things. The public option says, hey, those insurance guys are the reason we have extraordinarily expensive health care. We're really, no offense to Steve, but hospitalization costs are going up, pharma costs are going up. We're addressing the pharma costs significantly. We're trying to help create preferred networks so that state employees and small business go to places, go to hospitals, go to clinics where you get the best value. And best value is not just lowest cost, but also highest quality. And we're working on that hard. So simply saying, hey, small business, you can buy into the state employee plan. I looked at that 10 years ago. It was going to cost me a fortune when I had my business. It's something the legislature is pushing hard. I'm pushing particularly hard to hold down the underlying costs to make healthcare affordable for our small businesses and working with our insurance partners to come up with better solutions.
Thank you, Governor. Appreciate that input as well. Another similar question, you touched on it. When do you feel a widely and readily available supply of vaccinations will be accessible for small businesses and their staff?
Again, our problem is supply. Our problem is not distribution. I could handle, Connecticut could handle, Waterbury could handle, St. Mary's could handle probably 10 times the vaccines we're getting right now. So we were pushing like heck with Moderna and Pfizer, as I told you before. I think J&J, Johnson & Johnson are going to have their one-dose vaccine, I think, within a month. And that would be another 100 million. And if we get our allocated 1%, another million doses. So I'd like to think that if this ramp up continues, we're going to have substantial vaccinations of all of our eligible population, this summer.
Thank you, Governor. Nice to hear that as well. Switching over to taxes. What is your take on the implementation of a statewide property tax on residential and commercial properties?
Yeah, I'm not a big fan on that. It's a brand new tax. Generally, property taxes have been sort of under local jurisdiction, which I think makes sense. But most importantly, we don't need that revenue. I am redirecting a lot of federal money. As I think I told you, Waterbury is going to see $20 or $30 million more this year than last year. Full funding for ECS, which is cost sharing. I hope that allows Neil O'Leary to keep property taxes low. I appreciate that. And we got some plans in place to a more fully fund pilot, which is the payment in lieu of taxes, because some of our cities have an awful lot of public space that does not pay any property tax, and they should not bear that burden by themselves.
Thank you very much, Governor. Another question here coming from the audience. Are tolls coming to Connecticut in the next 2 to 5 years? That will raise prices on everything we purchase, which in turn is an added tax that will hurt people financially.
Yeah, well, you maybe know I kind of made an effort in that direction last year. By the way, that added tax, you pay it as that truck comes up through New Jersey, through New York, then it comes to Connecticut. So they have their tolls all along the way. And I did think we had to find a way to fix our roads and bridges, but that's off the table. But your questioner probably won't like my other solution, which is that highway user fee. which is just on the biggest tractor trailer trucks. Same thing as New York does. You're already paying it in New York as they come up here, but it's a way that we can get a little more funding so I can get that two-way rail service going to Waterbury.
Thank you, Governor. And it looks like I know you were right on the cusp of your time frame, and at this time, we've gotten to most of the questions. Any closing comments, Governor, before we thank you for your attendance today? And by the way, we can't thank you enough for joining us today and answering all of our questions. Yeah,
Lynn and Don, and you gave me good questions. I really want you to grill the state legislators when they're up, because they like really hard questions. But I'll tell you, I'll end where I started, which is I think Connecticut showed itself at its best this last year. I think we led our way compared to a lot of our peers when it comes to the pandemic. We kept most of our economy open. That allowed us to do better in terms of our budget. It allowed us to get a balanced budget without raising taxes. But I haven't forgotten the number of people who have been left behind. I know what that means to small business. I know what it means to the Black and brown community. I know a lot of people have been hit disproportionately hard. And my commitment is to make sure we're doing everything we can to keep them safe, give their kids an opportunity to get back to school, and make sure they have a future. I don't want this to be a lost year. I want this to be a year we learned from, and Connecticut came out stronger. Hey, Don, nice to see you. Thanks, everybody.
Governor, thank you so much. We can't tell you enough how much we appreciate it. We'll see you soon.
See you guys.
Take care, Governor. Before we dive into our legislative panel discussions, we're going to give you a little insight as to the Chamber's 2021 legislative agenda and the issues to be aware of for this session. It is now my pleasure to introduce Bill Polletta of Blazer Chevrolet Cadillac, the Chamber's Vice Chairman for Public Policy and Chairman of our Public Policy Committee. Bill, please take the floor.
Thank you, Don. Appreciate it. Good morning, everyone. We're pleased to present our 2021 legislative agenda this morning. That has been made available. Hopefully everybody's seen it. It's been made available online. I know it certainly is on the Chamber website. As everybody I'm sure knows, the Waterbury Regional Chamber advocates at the local, state, and federal levels on issues that we feel are important to our business members. I never like to pass up an opportunity to tout the contributions of our very active Public Policy Committee. It's made up from volunteers from our business members, and they are instrumental in crafting this agenda. So I want to thank them once again. We also invest in a professional lobbyist who serves as our champion at the legislature in Hartford. That would be Armando Paolino III of Paolino Public Affairs Consulting Incorporated, and you'll be hearing from Armando very shortly. So our chamber has also excited about recently welcoming a new director of public policy and economic development, who will be working with Armando and also with the Public Policy Committee, and obviously to make sure that our members' concerns are addressed. This would be Joshua Rodriguez. Joshua is fresh from the office of Congressman Jim Hines, so he has good federal experience, and that will add to our capacity to advocate for members on that level. And just a plug here is anybody who is interested in taking a more active role in the Chamber's public policy, we certainly invite you to join our committee that meets monthly. And if you're interested in doing that, please reach out to Joshua and he'd be happy to set you up for that. So a little bit on the process of the agenda. Each year we review the outcomes of the previous legislative session and update the agenda with input from the Healthcare Council, the Human Resources Council, and the boards of the Waterbury, Naugatuck, and Watertown Oakville chambers. The agenda is then reviewed and approved by the Waterbury Regional Chamber's Executive Committee and ultimately sent to the Board of Directors, where it is blessed from that point. This year it features policy objectives in 9 categories: taxing and spending, labor and workforce development, education, manufacturing, healthcare, economic development and tourism, energy and environment, regulatory reform, and transportation and infrastructure. We also kind of felt it was prudent to include some 2021 pandemic policy objectives to ensure that special consideration was given to the issues that have arisen as a result of the COVID-19. So our agenda has also been shared with each member of our region's legislative delegation, as well as with the leadership of the State House and the Senate, and of course the governor's administration. And as always, it's our hope that the legislature will work with business organizations like the Chamber and the Connecticut Business and Industry Association, CBIA, to implement policies that will allow businesses and nonprofits to thrive and prosper. So I hopefully you have had an opportunity to review that. If you have not yet, please do so. A lot of good information. It seems like it's getting tougher and tougher to fit it all in one document, but we do our best every year. So at this time, it is my distinct pleasure. I'd like to introduce our chamber lobbyist, Armando Paolino III of Paolino Public Affairs Consulting. He's going to give us a brief overview on some of the pressing issues for business owners this upcoming session. Armando?
Thank you, Bill. What a difference a day makes. On March 4th last year, the legislature was poised to begin hard work for the legislative session, with the preliminary introduction of legislation completed and hearings well underway. Speaker Simwitz gathered up a group of lobbyists buzzing in the cafeteria with late morning coffees. He addressed us saying, "We're going to do a deep clean over the next few days and air out the building this weekend. We're sending everyone home and we'll see you on Monday." After that, everything changed. New terms: PPE, PPP, executive orders, CISA, social distancing, COVID testing, shutdown, essential businesses, COVID vaccines, hospital capacity, infection rate, hospitalization rate, death rate, at risk, pandemic, recession, field hospital, Zoom, working virtual, pods, record unemployment, social unrest, equity, business failures, permanent job loss, transparency, access to government. We've all been living in an historic moment in time. We're going to experience accelerated change in life, business, education, and our economy. The effects will be different for everyone in every business, for employers and employees alike. The state legislatures convened in an unprecedented virtual session, eager to assert their role as an equal branch of government and to maintain the open, accessible process they are known for. There are hopes to finish the session with a return to open, bustling buildings, bringing the process home before Sine Die adjournment on June 9th. Many challenges face Connecticut and the business community, emerging from the damage wrought by the pandemic and continuing to rebuild our economy, our businesses, and the jobs decimated by the effects of COVID-19 will dominate this session for sure. Change is certainly upon us, and the Waterbury Regional Chamber of Commerce membership and staff are working to continue your voice, bringing your voice to the table. The Chamber has been a convener of discussions with key policymakers at critical junctures throughout the last year and a resource to the must-know details for your path forward. Now we are engaged in a limited but robust legislative process, bringing all voices together for the recovery and rebuilding for a better, brighter future. For the business community, this session will be dominated by how to rebuild and support businesses, controlling and limiting business costs, workers' compensation discussions on COVID-19 infections, unemployment compensation cost discussions around experience rating suspension until we recover jobs so as not to create a drag on jobs in our economy. Residential and business landlord implications for COVID foreclosures and the effects on banks, liquidity, lending, federal and state oversight. A significant focus will be on the return or not of traditional office work environments and new virtual work from home regimens, and a host of concerns when employees are working in their homes, educating and training and retraining our current and future workforce in new ways. Discussions will focus on new credentials. You heard the governor speak about it. High value certificate programs that allow anyone, not just those pursuing college, to build a career with credentials. Taxes are on the table as a group of liberal progressives seek to seize on the moment. The governor has laid out clearly this is not the time to drive up the cost to do business in Connecticut. A major area of focus will be the cost of health insurance and the effects on insurance and healthcare sectors as progressives seek a public option healthcare system that threatens to burden state government with excess costs and the loss of nearly 70,000 insurance industry jobs in Connecticut's insurance city, the capital city. Transportation infrastructure was a problem and remains so. You heard the governor speak about trying to find the solutions as we move forward. There'll be a focus on commuter rail and special transportation fund solvency, local education funding and implications for local property taxes, and economic development, brownfields, transit-oriented development, internet access are all on the table. Micro, small, minority, and women-owned business capital access is also a keen focus. Online gambling, sports betting are big issues for the state and the tribal casinos. Recreational use of marijuana is again in focus as surrounding states move forward. There are implications for businesses, especially military supply, train, manufacturing. A major area of focus will be the hospitality sector, currently down over 33,000 jobs, our 8th largest economic driver, including hotels, restaurants, and the substance of our tourism sector, as well as arts and culture. As we approach April and May, the fiscal committees will begin hard work. The Appropriations Committee detailing the budget needs to protect our citizens and provide services and access to opportunity for all. The Finance, Revenue, and Bonding Committee will closely be examining the revenue structure for successes and failures, opportunities, where change needs to occur, where relief is required, and where capital investments are necessary to assure our institutions, our infrastructure, and our economy. They will also address how federal stimulus money will be spent. Throw in clean, green energy costs, the Transportation Clean Initiative, looming solid waste concerns, sexual harassment training, minimum wage, the business pass-through tax, and tax credits for job creation and personal protective equipment in the workplace. We have prepared a report for today's event built on the weekly report to the Public Policy Committee chaired by Bill Polletta. Take note of it and use it to engage with your regional delegation legislators in the next segment of the summit. Thank you for being here and being part of the voice of business today.
Thank you, Armando, and thank you for that very extensive update. We appreciate your expertise and your insight, and we know you're fighting a good fight for us up there, so we appreciate that. We're almost ready to kick off our legislative panel, the first one, but as we mentioned earlier, events like this are simply not possible without the support of our tremendous sponsors. So we'd like to thank a few of them today. Our platinum sponsor, St. Mary's Hospital, Trinity Health of New England. Oh, hold on, well, they just changed my, okay. Gold sponsors, Eversource and Post University. Silver sponsors, AT&T and Webster Bank. Bronze sponsors, Harvard Hall and Palino Public Affairs Consulting Incorporated, Secor Casting, McPartland PC, and Waterbury Hospital. We thank all of them for their support. Again, this would not be possible but for their support. Now we're going to move into our first panel discussion on taxes, spending, and labor. It's my pleasure to introduce our panel. We have here with us today Senator Joan Hartley, Representative Nicole Klarides-Ditria, Representative Joe Polletta, Senator George Cabrera, Senator Robert Sampson, Representative Geraldo Reyes Jr., and we may have, again, I can't see everyone, Representative Larry Butler and Representative Anthony D'Amelio. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask each of our representatives or senators to give a brief introduction, and then we will have some questions for the panel, and we will also be taking your questions, of course, via the Q&A. So we encourage our members to take the time. This is a great opportunity to reach out directly to your senators and representatives on these important issues. We encourage you to stay involved. And with that in mind, Senator Joan Hartley, thank you for joining us. We're going to kick it off with you.
Good morning, all. It's a pleasure to be with you. To tell you the truth, I'm missing our usual, early morning session, but hopefully next year we'll be back to our usual arrangement. So I am on 6 legislative committees. executive nominations, which is important because that is the front door where the executive appointees come in, and it's the opportunity for us to have a personal exchange and, quite frankly, develop that relationship as we're going by. The next big nominee that will be coming before us is going to be the Commissioner of Education, which is obviously going to be very important. We just last week had the Commissioner of DOC before us. I'm also on the Banks Committee. It's the first time I've been on the Banks Committee. And so it's a good connection for me because I have also the opportunity to co-chair the Commerce Committee. And especially with everything that's going on right now, with small business assistance, with the PPP program, those are great connections. I kind of put myself on Regs Review, and some of you might remember our saga about the Transfer Act. Well, it continues. We are now in the third iteration of it, where we have in special session accomplished the simplification of the existing act for businesses, manufacturers with those legacy issues that manufacturing has always had to deal with, and also our commercial, in particular our commercial realtors. So we now have a robust working group for the transition now to the next model, which would be the release-based model, which the other 49 states in the whole United States use. It's a very laborious process, and I have no hopes that it's going to be finished by the end of this session. Although I will tell you, the Commissioner of DEEP is really trying to push the timeline. So that one is a TBC. And I am on the Appropriations Committee again, and my subcommittee chair is Conservation and Development, which means I will be dealing with the DECD budget, the Department of Labor budget, the DEEP budget, and then Consumer Protection, PURA, and a few others. With regard to my primary committee, which is the Commerce Committee, we have a very aggressive agenda because the standing up the economy is key. And so we are working to deal with small business relief, to recapitalize our MIF on the manufacturing sector, working on regulatory, the continuation, because we've done, I think, some significant things with regard to streamlining regulations. So there'll be a continuation of that. But anyway, once again, I want to tip my hat to the Chamber, to Armando. Through all of this, you have managed, you've been nimble, and you've managed to negotiate our new world and to keep in touch. So we're ever grateful for that. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. And as always, you've been such a huge supporter of the Chamber and our businesses. We can't thank you enough for that. And you're always here every year, year in and year out. We can't thank you enough for your participation. So thank you for being here. Now, Representative Nicole Klarides-Ditria, please, your opening comments.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you again for having us today. And it is sad that we're not in person, but like Senator Hartley said, hopefully next year we will be one-on-one in person, enjoying each other as we normally do. This year I'm sitting on 3 committees: Public Health, Finance, Revenue and Bonding, and Regulation Review. In Finance, as everybody knows, we'll be looking at ways to close our deficit gap. We need to fund our transportation fund, and we have to stop this real estate mansion tax, which I don't see how a house assessed at $300,000 is considered a mansion tax, but that's my personal opinion. Public health, we need dealing with our COVID-related issues. We're dealing with a vaccination bill that's very controversial that we'll be hearing this week in public health, and mental health help and funding for the residents of Connecticut. And as always, streamlining our regulation process and helping our businesses in Connecticut and our small businesses that are struggling at this time, that can't afford any more taxes, can't afford any more regulations. So really just helping the people of Connecticut and our businesses get back on track after, a year now plus almost of COVID related shutdowns. But I'd like to thank the chamber for all you do. And thank you for having me here today.
Well, thanks for being here. We certainly appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule, Representative.
Thank you.
Representative Joe Polletta, you're up. Let's see. Please with some introductory remarks, please.
Good morning, and good morning, fellow members and my colleagues in Hartford. I just want to say hello. I know that this is definitely out of the ordinary. I love this event every year, and coming to the hotel to participate in it and kind of give you a little update as to what we're doing. In this session, I will be the ranking member on the Housing Committee, as well as a member of the Finance, Revenue, and Bonding, and the Insurance and Real Estate Committees. My work in the past included, debating and trying to bring a more pro-business approach to raising the minimum wage and the new Family Medical Leave Act, which, I'm pretty well versed on. But now I have another large bill in front of me in terms of the regionalized zoning that's being presented. So I'm hoping to get something bipartisan out of committee where we can both work on and be proud of. And of course, if anyone has any questions going forward, I'm always available. I know the good work that the chamber does and really keeping the greater Waterbury area abreast on the issues and all of the small businesses. And really, let's not forget the small businesses, because they have been devastated these last 12 months and they need our help now more than ever. And I really thank you for this time to give an introduction.
Thank you, Representative, and you're right. They have been devastated, and we're not through it yet. But hopefully, as the governor said, we're at least in the later innings of what's going on here. Thank you again for joining us with your busy schedule as well. Senator George Cabrera, welcome to the program.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. I don't know what it was like when you guys met together, because this is my first time meeting all of you, so this is my experience. But I'm looking forward to meeting you all next year, God willing. I'm Senator George Cabrera. I'm in the 17th District. I'm serving on 5 committees this year. I'm co-chairing the Veteran Affairs Committee. I'm also serving on the Labor and Public Employees Committee, the Insurance and Real Estate Committee, Human Services, and Finance, Revenue, and Bonding. I too, to echo the sentiments of some of my colleagues, really focused on making sure we transition out of this pandemic in a way that we can sustain our small business community, our workers, our healthcare workers who have been the heroes in all of this, as all of you know. Really encouraged by some of the metrics that I've been watching, and really encouraged by some of the governor's comments this morning. I think he's right. I think as we transition into the spring, the economy will open up some more. We'll see some pent-up demand start to be released. But I'm really focused on making sure that we can do everything we can to support the citizens of the state of Connecticut, especially our small business community. I've been hearing from so many people in my district, small businesses, restaurants that have been struggling to make it. And I'm really going to be focused on making sure that they have the support that they need, and making sure that the workers have the support they need. There's so many needs out there, whether it's childcare or parents struggling their jobs, navigating being on Zoom and taking care of children. Lots of gaps in our social safety net that I'm hoping to be a part of the conversation to make sure that as we come out of this pandemic, that we not only support the business community, but also the workers who work in those businesses is really, really important to me. So, please know you have a partner in me. Reach out to me anytime. I'm looking forward to a good conversation today, and looking forward to working collaboratively with all of you to make sure we get Connecticut back on track. Thank you again.
Thank you, Senator, and welcome to your first official Waterbury Regional Chamber Legislative Summit. We're thrilled to have you here.
Thank you.
Appreciate that. I do not know if we have Senator Robert Sampson in the room. If you're here, please introduce yourself. I do not believe he's present at the moment. Maybe he'll be joining us. We do have Representative Geraldo Reyes Jr. Please introduce yourself there, my friend.
Good morning, everybody, to our Waterbury Chamber and Greater Waterbury Associates. It's an honor and privilege to be continue serving here in Waterbury. I have a pretty big task as I enter my 3rd official term up in Hartford, and I've been privileged to serve on appropriations, transportation, environment, and legislative management. And in subcommittees and appropriation, I have commerce and transportation. And transportation is huge to me, having the Waterbury rail line in my district. It's something that we've been advocating for. I have the privilege of being the co-chair on the Waterbury rail line. One thing that we have noticed is that the Waterbury ridership in the Waterbury rail line, even though all numbers are down, Waterbury rail line was the most used rail in the state of Connecticut. And it's to that end that we will continue to grow that particular rail line. We think it's huge and it's important for economic development between here and New York City and going the other way towards Boston. The other big responsibilities I've had the privilege of being added to Speaker Matt Ritter's team as Deputy Speaker this year, first time for me. And I have the privilege and honor of serving as the chair of the prestigious Black and Puerto Rican Caucus, which is 32 members and a strong voice and advocates for communities of color and underserved communities. And our big agenda for the 21-22 session is equity in everything that we touch and see up in Hartford. And we will be having our press conference on February 24th to discuss our 8 pillars. So thank you for the opportunity. And as always, I'm available through cell, email, and I'm usually found throughout the greater Waterbury area. So thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. Thanks for joining us, by the way. We certainly like having you here. Just a little housekeeping issue. Again, this is the panel on taxes, spending, and labor. And we introduced the delegation that is on this panel first. All of the other delegates that are here, senators and representatives, will be introduced for their specific panel as we go. We're not leaving anyone out. That's just, and by the way, the questions should come in on the Q&A form that should be there. This, again, the topic is taxes, spending, and labor. So please put your questions into the Q&A. And the way we're going to do this is we're going to put the questions out there, and then anyone on the panel can chime in, and we'll try to give everyone an opportunity, if they have a comment on the question, to share their thoughts on it. So question number 1, how can the state of Connecticut ensure a sustainable unemployment trust fund that can handle future economic downturns? Open to the panel. Anyone's free to chime in.
So hi, Don. I'm sorry, I was muted there. So the trust fund is pivotal to businesses, and particularly small businesses. And right now, in this atypical world that we're living in, we are anticipating, because we are now borrowing, as you know, from the feds. And the last time we did that, the results of it were a significant assessment onto small business. In the Commerce Committee, for example, we do have a small business proposal. It's going to, at the end of the day, once we vet it and refine it, we'll have to go to the Finance Committee. But what it proposes to do is for the horizon, for the category of small businesses, and we've defined small businesses as under 100 employees, at least at this juncture, to hold them harmless right now for the COVID experiences. Because as you know, it's an experience-based formula. And so right now, this is not representative of what their actual experience is. So as I said, we will be having, going through the public hearing process and the committee screening process to refine this. But right now in COVID, I think the first thing we have to do is to protect small business. They can ill afford having another exponentially high assessment come down to them, especially when this is totally out of their control. This is not emblematic of what their employment experience would be. So the system, as you know, is based upon premium and then on these assessments. We are trying on both junctures to try to put a firewall, if you will, and to have some kind of a safe haven based upon these numbers, which do not reflect the typical business experience. We also, on a federal basis, as the governor talked about a little bit earlier, are waiting to see how the CARES money, this next tranche, comes down, and then the allocations of that. The legislature, previously, as you know, we operated under executive orders, was not party in the room working on these formulaic distributions. We are seeking to try to do that. You know that the executive order has been extended now. I think the date is April 20th. However, there are some caveats in that which will allow for the legislature to be at the table on these distributions. So it's a fluid situation. We don't know what the numbers are that will be ultimately coming to us from the feds, but we are expecting, a robust federal infusion, and the hope is that we can stand up our trust fund here in the state, and hopefully when we get back to normal, we will, go back to the experience rating, but this is not representative of what a business experience is.
Indeed. Thank you, Senator, for those insightful comments. Again, panelists, if you'd like to comment on that first question, make sure you unmute yourself and feel free to chime in.
And also, just to add to what Senator Hartley said, the Republicans, we put in a couple bills about extending the suspension of the experience rating, which we all feel is important, and replenishing the UIC trust fund. So I just wanted to add those two things in there, because like we've said, our small businesses can't handle anymore. Our businesses have just we're still in our pandemic. We're still limiting what they can do. So we need to help them as much as we can to get out of this, year plus almost of what the coronavirus has done to our state and our businesses. Thank you.
I think that Don, who was just leading some questions, might have had a disconnection issue here. If anyone has a question, we encourage you to put it into the chat. We do have a great panel of legislators, as you've been introduced to. I'm just going to look at a couple of other questions that we may be able to ask you.
Sorry about that, Len.
Here you are, Don.
Yep, my apologies. Technical difficulties right there. I was pushed out, so I did not hear if there was any more comments on that first question.
No, Don, you can go to your next question.
All right, fantastic. Let's go on to the next question. With the influx of new residents from surrounding states, how can the state of Connecticut attract entrepreneurs, foster startups, and promote private sector investment? Open to the pen. And remember, you have to unmute yourselves if you want to speak.
Hey, Don, I'll chime in on that if you don't mind.
Please do.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak. It's very encouraging to see that for the first time in a number of years, Connecticut actually has some people coming to our state, whether it be for, trying to escape New York City and the coronavirus. But, the fact is that there are a lot of people moving into Connecticut, and they want to make their home here. So the policies that, particularly myself and my side of the aisle have been speaking about has been to try to create an environment conducive for job growth. So number one, try to get families here and let them stay here. So what would that mean? A job for, husband and wife, a place, a good education system for their kids, decent transportation so they can get from one side to the state to another if they're, let's say, living in Waterbury, working in Stamford, get there under an hour. And also making sure that when their children grow up, they want to come back here to Connecticut. What we're finding is that people are leaving Connecticut, particularly people in my generation. And I'm not trying to say that I'm the youngest guy on this call, but I think besides Julie, I might be. And, you know, there are a lot of folks in my age group that are not choosing to make their home here in Connecticut. You might hear someone move to West Hartford, maybe Stamford, but other than that, you know, it's few and far in between younger families with kids moving here. So let's try to capitalize on this. If they're coming from New York, if they're coming from Massachusetts, if people are escaping other states close to us, let's try to get them to stay here. And I'm all ears as to how we can make our state a better place to live, work, and raise a family.
And that certainly should be focused. Thank you for your comments on that. Additional comments from the panel on that question.
Yep. Thank you. Thank you, Don. And thank you, Representative Polletta, for your opening comments. And, you know, there are a lot of folks moving here from New York, and I stay in close contact with realtors. And the number one complaint from the folks that are moving here who are paying top dollar and over asking price for almost any home they buy is that their initial thought was that they're going to leave their children here and have their children in education here. But their initial thought and process was that they were going to commute back to New York. And what they're finding is that the commute is really way too long. And the realtors that I've been talking to have shown me cases where people have resold their home and have gone back to New York simply because of the transportation needs. So that's why I keep harping on the trains and the transportation infrastructure has to be solid. You know, we just can't not keep putting people on buses and having them miss connections in Bridgeport to wherever their destination is. So that's kind of important to me. It is good to see a trend here. You know, unfortunate situations in the world, earthquake and hurricanes in Puerto Rico have brought in an influx of people. Devastating, unfortunate acts in different places of the world have brought a lot of people here to Connecticut. And that makes me focus even more on the education piece. And people will keep their kids here if they believe they're going to get a good quality education in the public school system. And, you know, I'll just put this plug in here right now. We just, you know, saddened to see that Sacred Heart High School closed yesterday. You know, it's good. That's a big loss for the city of Waterbury. And which again, I think will put an even bigger and stronger emphasis on public education. So great question. And it's a great topic. And thank you for listening to my thoughts.
Thank you very much for those comments. Additional comments from the panel?
Yeah, this is Senator Cabrera. Just want to, Connecticut's a great place to be. I mean, I love this state. It's fantastic in so many ways. It is interesting to see so many people moving in to the state in the middle of a pandemic, which I think is a testament to the quality of life that we have here. But there are some things I think that we should be doing to invest in our long-term growth and vitality. The first one, which has been discussed here several times, is workforce development. I think that's critical. I speak to many of my friends in the manufacturing sector, and the stories I keep hearing over and over again is the struggles that they go through finding workers who have the requisite skill sets and certifications to take those jobs. I think that's something we need to really invest in, especially our young people who may not be on the college track or just are not interested in pursuing a career via the college route. Making those on-ramps to the middle class more available to them, whether it's the trades, we're the plumbers, the pipe fitters, the skilled tradesmen, the skilled workforce that we need for our business community, and also to get more of those solid middle class jobs that don't require a college degree. The second one is infrastructure investment. Everyone here knows the condition of our roads and our bridges, our infrastructure is in deep need of investment. And I think that things like the Waterbury train line are critical to have regional development to make sure people can move more freely. And I think as the economy opens up and we see the state of our economy post-pandemic, if we make it easier for people to travel and make it easier to have these regional hubs, I think that that's a great thing to do for the state of Connecticut for long-term investment. And then lastly, of course, is education, which Representative Reyes mentioned. We have some of the best schools in the country. We are always ranking in the top 5 when compared state by state, but we do have some gaps, especially in our urban centers and even in some of our small size, mid-sized cities that I represent, the Derbys, the Ansonias, the New Britons, some of those smaller cities that sometimes don't get the attention that they deserve, like the big cities do. And we really have to find a way to pretty much end our over-reliance on local property taxes to fund our schools. So those are some of the three things I see long-term investment for our state.
Thank you, Senator. Appreciate your comments. Last call on this question. Anything? All right. If not, I'm going to field a call from one of our attendees. The governor said that while they were adding a new train to the Waterbury rail line in the next year with existing equipment, he did not want to issue bonds to purchase a new rail rolling stock in the coming years. However, the rail plan that has been discussed between the department and legislators cannot move forward on schedule through 225 without the authorization of debt to order the new rolling stock, which will be required for any major expansion in the future years. Is the legislative delegation on behalf of Waterbury of the belief that no bonding needs to be done this year for Waterbury Rail?
Hey, Don, I'll jump on this one first.
Please.
The Waterbury Naugatuck rail line, as our rail line caucus has talked about, it's very important. And we have bonding for important projects. And this Naugatuck Waterbury rail line is an important project. No one wants to borrow money, but you need to pick these projects that are as important as they are. This will bring people into our area. The governor said we have this influx. We know we have an influx of people that came in from New York. We want to keep them here. So if they don't get the transportation upgrades that they need, they're going to leave again. They came in during COVID and they'll say, okay, well, we can't deal with it here. They're not giving us the transportation infrastructure that we need. So they're going to hightail it out and go somewhere else that has it. So in order to compete with our surrounding states, if we don't fix our rail system and our transportation system, they're going to leave again. And it's the same thing. It brings in businesses, it'll bring in people. So yes, to Rick Dunn's question, bonding is important and it's used at the right time. And we also need to excuse my cat, sorry. He's in the meeting. So we need to remember the Valley Fire Training School that the governor promised the Valley area before. He promised when he was running for governor that he would fully fund that school, and we're still waiting. And that also adds to these people that come in. We need to train our firefighters to help this new influx of people. Without the proper training, that puts our residents at risk. Thanks, Don.
Thank you for those comments. Yeah, please.
Thank you.
Yeah, any other comments on this question?
I'll just chime in real quick. I started on that Waterbury rail line, and it's clearly imperative, and I actually would like to hear from Senator Joan Hartley, who's been involved in this from day one on the Waterbury rail line. She knows the inner secrets and the inner circle on that whole Waterbury rail line. I'd like to hear from the senator. Thank you.
Senator, any comments?
Sure. Thanks, Jerry. So yeah, it's been a long saga on the Waterbury branch line, but we are poised to begin to open up two-way traffic, and the governor talked about that and indicated in the budget for 2023. There are cars that are available and can be repurposed, and those are from Shoreline East. So there would not have to be an expenditure for cars right now. Then the next question is the operation. We will need money. It's about $1.2 million to launch the operation, because there is not right now the personnel to add on those extra routes. So that is a proposal that we have put together, and it is in the legislative pipeline. So I would ask the chamber, as they always do, working in unison with us, to work this through the legislative session. It's, I think, a very prudent ask. And with regard, as Representative Reyes and others indicated, to the ridership, it can be clearly justified. I also wanted to just make one other comment with regard to this in the last question and clear up something. So the United Van Lines put out some press in the last couple of months saying that, in fact, Connecticut had a negative in-migration and a positive out-migration. That, in other words, we had more people moving out than moving in, based upon what they used were their, their moving requests. Anyway, we drilled down on that, and we found out that that actually was a 2019 metric that was put out there, but the press kind of used it as it was current information. 2020 definitely we had increased in migration, and the number is about 22,000 people moved into this state, which means, and that's continuing, and we see it in our school districts, and we see it in a lot of other metrics. But it gives us, that's the silver lining, as I see right now, on COVID, because previously our Achilles were that, we didn't have a Boston, we didn't have a New York, and in the competition on Amazon applications and so forth, we did not compete that way. And in addition, we didn't have the we didn't have the T that Boston has, we didn't have the metro system that the New York metropolitan area has. People don't want that anymore. They don't want to work in high rises. They want to be not in congested areas. It then speaks to Connecticut, and that then translates in what we are actually seeing with this right now, plus 22,000 people moving in and others continuing. It's our silver lining. We can't miss this moment. And so we have to capitalize on it. So working with the chamber, the delegation, we've got to keep a budget that is sound but manageable, and to continue to capitalize on this, because we have not seen this in at least a decade and a half. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Senator. I know we're running right at the edge of our time frame here, but I don't want to leave this question hanging. It came in from one of our attendees. House Bill number 6119 proposes increasing the percentage of hotel and lodging tax that is allocated to the tourism fund from 10 to 25%. There was just a Commerce Committee hearing on this yesterday. I'd like to know how the panelists feel about this and if they would support it, ultimately benefiting the arts and culture sector. Also, note this does not propose increasing the tax rate itself. Comments on that, and then we'll have to wrap it up.
I don't want to be over talking here, but I just want to say, yeah, we had a 7-hour hearing yesterday on this, and primarily it was in support of 6119, and I think that it's a sound proposal. It also recognizes arts and culture. It keeps a 60-40 split between marketing and then arts and culture. I believe the committee that is, it's before the Commerce Committee right now, is viewing it in a very positive way. So we will be acting on it shortly. As a result of yesterday's public hearing, we go through the process, as all my colleagues do, to screen the input that was given to us yesterday to see if there will be any refinements or tweaks in that proposal. But I think it's got some real solid support.
Thank you, Senator. Any other comments on this question?
Yeah, Don, we actually had a bill last session that Senator Berthel and I and Representative, from Ridgefield, escapes my name right now. He just retired. He actually had partnered with us with the bill, and former Senator Rob Kane had introduced it originally as an arts and culture district bill. And what we did was we actually got it passed last time, which gives a local option to folks along main streets in small towns to get a tax abatement if they invest in arts and culture. So I'm all ears and certainly would support a bill that, brings more tourism or arts and culture to our small towns and kind of gives it that vibe as well. And it's Representative Fry. Sorry, his name escaped me for a minute. I was having a senior moment.
Thank you so much for your comments. And we all know the return on investment when it comes to culture and tourism. I mean, the numbers are there. The question is just making sure we make the investment. So thank you for your input. Any last comments on this question before we wrap up this panel?
Just real quick, Don.
Yes.
Yeah, something I can certainly get behind, anything with arts and tourism for the state of Connecticut, especially with the diverse community that we have in the greater Waterbury area, would be strongly something that we could use. And I would be supporting this particular type of legislation. I just wanted to make a comment. I just see Senator Sampson join us, and I thought maybe we should just defer and have him have an opportunity to say something. And thank you for the opportunity.
Certainly. Thank you for the whole panel. Senator, if you have joined us, we're running a long time, but we would love to have you at least introduce yourself and tell us what you're involved in, and maybe make some comments as to what your focus is for this session.
Sure. Good morning, everyone. I apologize for my late arrival. I had some surgery recently, and this morning I had to make a phone call to my doctor, and so I rushed over here as soon as I finished with that. Most of you folks know me. I'm serving my second term in the state Senate. Before that, I served 4 terms in the House. This year, I'm the ranking member on the Government Administration and Elections Committee and also on the Labor Committee. I mean, this year is going to be very similar to previous years. Serving as a Republican in the minority is always more a matter of trying to stop bad policy than trying to push good policy. I would say that the #1 focus, although this may not seem like an important issue to the business community, but I think the most important focus I have this year is making sure that we restore the integrity of our election process in Connecticut. I'm very concerned about making sure that our elections are fair going forward, and that there's a legitimate chance for all candidates to participate and have an opportunity to win. You guys probably know the public option, is something bouncing around. They're talking about a mileage tax. I understand that there are proactive policies being proposed to increase our economic development, and those may be good things, and I would be supportive of them. But the biggest thing that we could do as a state is stop doing bad things. We need to make Connecticut a more attractive and affordable place for everyone, for people to live and reside here. Senior citizens on fixed incomes, they're getting squeezed more and more every year. And, people are making the choice to retire in other states. That has a negative impact on our economy, obviously, because those dollars are not being spent to grow Connecticut's economy. And the business community has to make really hard choices if they're going to expand or even open a business in Connecticut. And I think that's unfortunate. And I'll just close by saying that I remain focused on trying to restore the freedom and autonomy of Connecticut's businesses to make their own choices on whether or not they're going to be open and operate. I think the heavy hand of the state government was completely unnecessary and remains that way. Business people are smart. They can figure out how to run their businesses safely, during these COVID times, et cetera. And I would like to see them have the chance to do that. And thanks very much for indulging me.
Thank you, Senator. Thanks for making it in. And we certainly wish you the best of health with whatever's going on. And thank you again.
Thanks to Representative Reyes for giving me the shout.
All right. Yeah, that's right. He's got your back over there. So this will wrap up the first panel for today. We want to thank everyone for joining us for this. As far as our delegation did a wonderful job. Thank you. If you want to get in touch with them, you reach out to us with our public policy committee, and we'll get you in direct contact with them as well. So at this time, it's time to move on to our next panel of the morning, which focuses on transportation, infrastructure, energy, and environment. And joining us today on behalf of our gold sponsor for this panel for Eversource is Justin Bevins, an energy efficiency sales executive with Eversource. Justin, welcome to the program, and please, we'd love to hear your comments.
Thank you, Don, and to the Waterbury Chamber for hosting this event and providing me the opportunity to speak with everybody today. As was mentioned, my name is Justin Bevins. I'm one of the energy efficiency account executives for Eversource Energy. And I was pleased to hear Governor Lamont's stance on avoiding any sweeps from the Energy Efficiency Fund. But today I wanted to briefly remind everybody to take advantage of the energy efficiency programs for Connecticut, which are administered by Eversource and Avangrid, and our goal to reduce energy consumption and offset greenhouse gas emissions. 2020 was a difficult year for everybody, but that didn't stop residents and businesses from taking a positive step to reduce their energy consumption, which can be even more important as a lot of us are still working from home, as you can see from my background here. In the past year, within Eversource Connecticut service territory, the Connecticut Energy Efficiency Programs, with the help of our highly skilled contractors and engineering firms, we're able to reduce approximately 200 million annual kilowatt hours, which is the equivalent of over 30,000 vehicles taken off the road for a year. We also reduced natural gas consumption by 2.5 million annual CCF, which is the equivalent of almost 33 million miles not driven. These aggressive energy savings were achieved through the utilization of various programs offered by Energize Connecticut that have been developed to assist every sector of our communities, from residential, commercial, industrial, and municipal customers. So as we focus our energy towards 2021, I thought it would be beneficial to give a quick update and highlights of some of the program changes that we have and specific programs that everybody should be taking advantage of. Last year, we rolled out enhanced incentive structures under the Savings Are Essential title in order to assist businesses who are already struggling due to the pandemic as a path forward to continue the focus on energy savings during such a difficult year. I'm happy to announce that those incentives have been continued into 2021, all the way up to June 30th. So if you're on the fence about when to execute on an energy efficiency project, there really is no better time than now to offset some of those initial costs, as the incentives have been increased to help everybody out. Also, if you're confused on what to do for your house, business, municipality, we have you covered there as well. The Connecticut Energy Efficiency Programs have an approved bench of engineering firms and contractors that can be utilized to help you understand your specific energy projects. Those study costs can be shared, and for a lot of circumstances, they're actually fully covered. So there's really no reason not to reach out to Eversource for assistance. So if you don't have my contact information or anybody at Eversource, please reach out to the chamber. They'll be happy to reach out to me and get connected to my associates as well. I'm also excited that this year we developed a specialized initiative to assist in the costs associated with storing the COVID-19 vaccine, which require ultra low temp freezers. Those freezers meeting qualifying energy saving criteria can now qualify for a $1,500 rebate, making it a simple process for us to assist those customers during this time when they need to invest in the necessary equipment that will benefit us all. So once again, thank you to the Chamber for the opportunity to be virtually here with you all. Looking forward to the next panel, and I'll pass it back to you, Don.
Thank you so much, Justin. And by the way, thank you again for being one of our sponsors. This would not happen but for companies such as yours. So thank you again. It's now time for our second panel, as we discussed. And I believe we have everyone here except one, which I'm going to introduce all of them and allow them to introduce themselves. Representative John Piscopo, Representative Michael DiGiovancarlo, Representative David Labriola, I believe is on his way. He's not here right now. Representative Rosa Rebimbas, Representative David Wilson, and Representative Cindy Harrison. So I will start, please, with Representative Piscopo. Please say hello.
Hello, Don, and thank you very much for having me. Appreciate it. And Lynn, members of the chamber. When I was eating my bowl of oatmeal this morning, I was missing the breakfast that we usually get there at the hotel. But more importantly than that, the conversation I had around the table with the members and listening to them talk about their businesses and then asking them questions about their businesses. So I do miss that, the interaction. But it's good to be here, and thank you very much for inviting me. I'm on the Finance, Revenue, and Bonding Committee. I'm also on the Environment Committee, and I'm on the Energy Committee. It's strategic that you have this on a state holiday because we've been very, very busy. The committees are in full gear now and a lot of hours in public hearings. So, and there's a lot of action on all three of those committees I had mentioned. And there are a few things I'd like to put on your radar. It's that the climate change initiative, the governor hit on the transportation climate change initiative. I worry about the ramifications in that with a carbon tax, talk about a new faucet of revenue, new tax. The carbon tax, the heavy duty vehicle tax is very concerning to me. And we all know that it's only on Class 8 vehicles, and I'll get into that in more detail if I can during the questions. But it may come down, and I'll try and clarify that also. And a carbon tax also is part of those initiatives. It affects energy and the environment, and also, of course, taxes with the Finance, Revenue, and Bonding Committee. So we're going to be real busy. So thank you very much, Don, again for having us, and appreciate it.
Representative, thanks for joining us. Appreciate your opening comments. Representative Michael DiGiovancarlo. You there, Representative?
I am sorry about that.
Oh, sure.
Hello, everybody. Hello, everybody. I want to thank the chamber.
Talk.
Yes, sir. I'd like to thank the chamber for having me. Obviously brand new to the legislature. I just elected. I am serving on commerce, public safety, and veterans. Unfortunately, I haven't had the true experience of being up there and talking to my colleagues, but gonna make the best of what we got thrown at us and work with both sides to try to make Connecticut a better place.
Thank you very much. We appreciate that, Representative. I'm not sure if Representative David Labriola, are you here yet or no? Okay. With that in mind, maybe he'll get here and join us in a little bit. Representative Rosa Rebimbas, please.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for putting this on. I know the challenging times that we're in. Actually, I do know that Representative Labriola had indicated that he did have another commitment that he was on all throughout the entire morning, but did have to jump off. Once again, State Representative Rosa Rebimbas, I have the distinct pleasure of representing the 70th District, which consists of Naugatuck. Currently this year, I am the Deputy Leader for the House Republicans. I also serve on the Judiciary Committee, Environment Committee, and the Transportation Committee, which I specifically made sure to request that this year to make sure that all of our requests and the agendas that we all have for our businesses and communities actually are carried through this year as well. I also have the distinct pleasure of being the chair of the Screening Committee, which essentially is a bipartisan committee where every bill that makes it out of the individual committees does come before us, which we then review before it goes out into the Senate and House chambers. Certainly, I'm also serving as co-chair of the Women's Caucus and the Waterbury Rail Line Caucus, which certainly has been a huge topic this morning, rightfully so, and look forward to working hard, not only obviously for our businesses, but the chamber's agenda, which has always been our agenda. I know it's tough times and challenges, but we have to make sure that we remember the communities, the businesses, and we can't just do this on one revenue lines of federal funding. We have to make some sincere, real changes to the way businesses operate or government operates, to be completely honest, in the state of Connecticut if we're going to sustain this, because that revenue funding that's coming down from the federal pipeline is going to, certainly help greatly, but we can't rely on it moving forward. And I think that's important to keep in our minds as we move forward on the many very laudable projects that we're looking to do. So thank you again.
Thank you, Representative, for those introductory comments. Representative David Wilson, please.
Good morning, Don, and
Good
thank
morning.
you so much to the Waterbury Chamber for hosting this. I'm in my third term now, and I believe I've been to every year's event, and I learn a lot and enjoy listening and getting feedback. So I'm representing the 66th district, which is Woodbury, Bethlehem, Morris, Litchfield, and Warren. So it's primarily, I guess the connection is the Woodbury business area for me here today. I am on 3 committees. I'm ranking member on the Aging Committee. And we have right now 42 raised bills. And a few more, I can tell you, are probably going to be added to that list. I'm also on the Environment Committee, which is always a very important responsibility. We don't take our work lightly. I can't tell you how many bills have been raised in that committee. I didn't look it up this morning. It was interesting on your agenda that I received. I was down for the 10 a.m. Health and Human Services section, which is coming up next. So I did all my homework for that. And now here I am in Energy and Environment. So I don't have as many notes. But let me just say this. As a member of the Conservative Caucus, which is 15 of us in the Republican House, the minority, we feel we have a responsibility to make sure that the process that we're involved in this time of COVID and the pandemic is that folks don't get disenfranchised. And so our biggest concern of doing all of these meetings by Zoom is that we're disenfranchising folks who don't have broadband access, who don't have Wi-Fi or internet access. And then when we talk about limiting the length of a hearing, to 24 hours when we're trying to do it by this method. So you have people that can't dial in, period. And then you are saying, okay, we're only going to take 24 hours of testimony. I think that it doesn't allow the people of the state of Connecticut a full, transparent and clear voice. I think back to last session when we had the debate on vaccines, and we filled, I believe, 3 hearing rooms with people waiting in line to have their minute before the committee, or their 3 minutes before the committee. And that clearly took more than 24 hours. So I just wouldn't feel right if I didn't bring that up. Anyone who knows me, I am a great supporter of small business here in the state of Connecticut, and will do everything I can to preserve and protect and make affordable the ability for entrepreneurs to build the economy of the state of Connecticut. And I'm looking forward to this part of the discussion today, and hope that I can participate just by, let's say, memory, without notes. So thank you so much for having me here
We'll
today.
keep you on your toes, Representative, that's for sure. But thank you for joining us. I'm glad to hear that you've been here for all these years, and we appreciate that support. Representative Cindy Harrison.
Hey, good morning.
Morning.
I guess I get to say it's historic. This is my first time being here, and I get to do it on Zoom and not visit all of you. Being a freshman, I'm here to listen and make sure I can do the best job possible for everyone. But I'm on appropriations, I'm on environment, and I'm on transportation. We're well underway, and we certainly are going to tackle a lot of issues, as my colleague Representative Wilson said, in environment and in transportation. And we've had some long public hearings and some good things to tackle. We always want to keep in mind getting our small businesses open and not doing anything that is going to hurt them in that process. So thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you so much, Representative. I'm going to get right into the questions, try to get us back on as much time as we can for these questions. First question: what efforts are underway in supporting the Port of Naugatuck project? Again, anyone on the panel can chime in. Just make sure you unmute yourself. We'd love to have your comments. Anyone on the Port of Naugatuck project? All right, I'm going to go on to the next question then. Is a mileage tax a viable alternative to tolls? Comments or thoughts on that?
Don, my apologies. I know you were just talking about the Port of Naugatuck. Unfortunately, I'm between 2 meetings as I'm participating on here as well. Just wanted to certainly just briefly mention that it's certainly a project which I think our mayor in Naugatuck, Mayor Hess, has done a phenomenal job in not only certainly engaging the delegation, but the federal delegation. I anticipate and hope that there'll be some funding coming down the pipeline as well in order to support that. This is something that I think it will be not only wonderful, not only for the greater Naugatuck Valley, but the state as a whole, regionally as well. In the United States of America, it's cost effective for businesses to be able to have another port to rely on. This would certainly be a huge boom economically for transportation of many very important items, again, up and down the region. So it's something that's moving forward. It's certainly something that we're going to continue to work hard and collaboratively and anticipate and hope that it will come to fruition in the future.
Thank you so much for commenting on that. I know that's something that's near and dear to the Chamber's heart right now too, to make sure that we do support that. So thank you for your comments on that, Representative. Next question I mentioned earlier, is a mileage tax a viable alternative to tolls? Any comments on that?
I'll jump in on that. I don't think it's a very good idea. I don't think it's a viable alternative to tolls. I don't think tolls is a viable alternative either, but we really have to get our arms around the Special Transportation Fund. I know it was an emphasis of our governor's address this morning, and he's absolutely correct. But the way we do that is let's analyze it. Let's find out why Connecticut is the highest tax, pays the highest gas taxes in the nation, continental U.S. And let's find out why we pay more per mile to fix our roads than any other state in the union. So let's get our arms around it. Look at the spending first, and then we'll see how the revenue flow is coming in and do a real good analysis of that. I know you heard this last year during the toll debate, and it's going to be a big debate, but I think it's just a bad idea, a bad policy. Not to mention the transponder you're going to have in your car to track every mile you drive, and that's right out of Orwell. So for that reason too, I oppose it.
Thank you for your comments. Any additional comments on that particular question?
Sure, Don. I'll back up Representative Piscopo. Look, a tax is a tax is a tax, no matter how you want to paint it. And, you know, coming out of the box, we may be talking about only certain heavy class trucks that have to pay this fee. And we all know that those fees get passed on to the end user before we're done. And I think that Representative Piscopo is correct. Let's take a look and say, why is it that Connecticut spends more per mile than any other state in the union? There's probably pretty logical reasons for that. It's just, there's always an elephant in the room. Nobody wants to talk about it. It's just like our unfunded pension liability. Why aren't we talking about that? How are we going to solve those kind of problems? So I will still definitely be a no. I was no on tolls, and I'm certainly going to be no on this one as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. Any more comments on that one particular question? All right, next question. What will be the impact on business costs with the implementation of Governor Lamont's Transportation Climate Initiative for the cost of goods and services in Connecticut, as well as travel?
I don't want to monopolize my fellow panelists' time, but yeah, it's going to be, and that's what I want to encourage this chamber to look into. What are the far-ranging costs going to be? What's the effect that these initiatives are going to have on our environment? I mean, on our economy, on our business communities, and our nonprofits also. The worst thing we could do in the name of climate change is make it political. It's instead of a scientific debate. So this is a very, very dangerous initiative. I mentioned the carbon tax. That's going to be a far-ranging tax on any expenditure of fuel, any energy that's given off. Our manufacturers produce a lot of electricity, need a lot of electricity for what they produce, and that's going to be a big effect on a lot of our industry and our economy, even our small businesses. The carbon tax I mentioned, and the heavy vehicle tax also, in the name of that Transportation Climate Initiative. It's Class 8 vehicles. Class 8 vehicles, as the governor also rightly said, it's larger tractor trailers, but they deliver our food. And don't tell me that's not going to be passed on to the consumer. It's on tanker trucks, a Class 8 vehicle that's delivering our milk and our fuel. So that's another added tax. So let's be careful of these new faucets of revenue. And they're big faucets. So I urge the chamber to please take a real good look at the ramifications of this. I know it's not mentioned a lot in the press or in Hartford even, but please take a good hard look at this.
Thank you, Representative. Any more comments on that particular question? All right, I'm going to move on to fielding one of the questions that are coming in from our attendees. Wind and solar are great clean energy options. So are fuel cells, which are manufactured in Torrington, Danbury, and South Windsor. What are your opinions on keeping these Connecticut-based companies vibrant and utilizing fuel cells for Connecticut industry and municipalities? Any comments on that? All right, I'm going to move. Go ahead.
Maybe just real quick, because the fuel cells are a Connecticut industry. We're very, very proud of it. Class 1 renewable. It was the commissioner just threw out the contracts for our fuel cell procurement. So that's not good policy. And they're going with wind, which is going to double the price of our energy. We pay about 4 cents a kilowatt hour. Wind's going to come in at 8 cents, and solar is a little higher than that. So again, beware of that also. Sorry.
Any other comments on that question? We're going to shift gears over to another topic. With the state park usage at an all-time high due to COVID, what steps are being taken to ensure our parks remain environmentally sustainable? Thoughts on the park usage?
I'll just chime in a little bit here, Don. I know that there's initiative in the aging committee to remove the passport for park fees for folks over 65. So, you know, that doesn't help that revenue source, but I think it's an important consideration and certainly open for discussion. You know, how we maintain the parks, I think, has to be handled strategically, again, looking at where the money's being spent, how the money's being spent. And those are the things I think a lot of times that we're not spending enough time focusing on. I don't think I mentioned at the beginning when I was introducing myself that I'm also on the Appropriations Committee and 4 subcommittees: the Legislative, General Government A, Conservation and Development, and Human Services. So conservation and development, I can just say that I'll be looking very closely at those numbers. And if there's places that we can find for economies of scale, a lot of what we need to be doing is looking at reduction, not more ways of raising revenue, but ways to save money. And through those economies of scale, hopefully, we're going to be able to prioritize things like our parks and make sure that we preserve them and make them continually viable. So that's my thought.
Thank you for your comments. Additional comments on that question? Okay. With that, I'm going to move on to another question. COVID has had a major impact in the housing market, with a possible wave of evictions on the horizon. How is Connecticut positioning itself to grow the affordable housing market? Thoughts on that? Any comments on the affordable housing market? All right. I'm not going to twist your hands on this. All right.
I'll make a comment. Look, I think that a lot of affordable housing is really more of an education issue. I think that especially in the rural areas, the objection is ill-founded. I think a lot of folks just don't understand. They hear the word affordable housing and they immediately go to Section 8, which really is the wrong direction to go in. So I think that we as a state, I think that people that are in the real estate business need to work together, and the contractor development folks, Home Builders Association and so forth, we all need to work together to help educate the citizens of the state of Connecticut that affordable housing is a good thing. It isn't a bad thing. How we approach it, I certainly don't believe is going to be implementing statewide zoning to control or take control away from our local municipalities. And so we have to be very careful of that initiative that is being pushed out of Hartford onto our small communities. We can run ourselves. We don't need the state of Connecticut to run our small municipalities. So you'll be hearing from me as this subject starts to get closer to the surface. So affordable housing is good. We need to educate on how it works and why it's good.
Thank you very much, Representative, for your input. Any last comments on that last question? All right, that's actually going to bring us right to the end of our time frame for this panel. I just want to thank everyone being a part of the panel. Thank you for everyone's opening comments and participation. And again, if anyone has any questions for this panel, please get a hold of the chamber and we will be forwarding on your questions or putting you in direct contact with them. Thank you again, everybody. We certainly appreciate it. At this time, we're going to move on to the final panel of the morning, focusing on health, human services, and regulation. And at this time, I'm happy to introduce Sean Wisenhut, Director of Corporate Partnerships at Post University, to say a few words on behalf of Post, which is the gold sponsor for this panel. Welcome, Sean. Please comment.
Thanks, Don. Post is very happy to be one of this year's sponsors for the Legislative Summit. Thanks to Lynn and the entire staff of the Chamber for bringing the governor and our state leaders to the business community. As many of the speakers have mentioned this morning, this year's summit is much different, but everything's been different over the last year. This time last year, we were spending time with our friends and families in person, traveling, shopping, and working in our offices versus meetings with Zoom, Teams, or FaceTime. I don't think any of us expected that we would still be in this situation 12 months ago. I did want to share a recent bright spot for Post. Over the last few weeks, Post Together, in partnership with Waterbury Health, launched a drive-through vaccination site on the Post campus. This was something that Post felt we needed to do to give back to our community and do our part to help end the pandemic. This has been very rewarding for our associates to be able to step up and help. I was there for my first shift just last week, and the greater Waterbury residents that have come for their vaccine are so thankful and appreciative. We've been fortunate to have a great partnership with Waterbury Health and the city of Waterbury to make this all happen. If you want more information about getting your vaccine, if you're eligible, go to the Waterbury Hospital website and you can get more information there. However, despite this challenging year, we've all tried to adapt to whatever the new normal is, whatever that means. And I'm optimistic that more and more as they get vaccinated, we can all make a difference and come out on the other side very soon. So I will wrap up this way in the sake of time. This week, a very smart guy I know told me, nobody really wants to hear from sponsors. So thanks for allowing me a few minutes. That said, I'm looking forward to hearing more from our legislative leaders. Thanks, Don.
Thanks so much, Sean. And by the way, like I said, this is not possible without organizations such as yours. So we do like hearing from you, and you play such a vital role in making sure these events happen. So we thank you so much, and thank Post as well. So now, again, we're going to move on to this next session. We either have these people here or they're supposed to be here. I believe most are here. Senator Eric Berthel, Representative Gail Mastrofrancesco. We've got Representative Ronald Napoli. I believe Representative Leslie Zupkis had to leave. And I do not believe we're going to see from Representative Liz Linehan, or I think that's all we have. So I believe we have Senator Berthel, Representative Mastrofrancesco, and then I believe Ronald Napoli is here. So let's start with you, Senator Berthel.
Good morning, Don. Good morning, everyone. First of all, my sincere appreciation to Lynn and the Chamber and your staffs for once again putting together a wonderful event, new challenge in this virtual world that we're living in. A special thanks as well to Bill Palumba and Armando for keeping your members informed on political issues and government affairs. You know, I think one thing I have not heard yet, and I've been on for almost every minute of the presentation so far, is that if we've seen one thing from all of the legislators that are participating today, is that the greater Waterbury delegation, regardless of or despite our politics, we work together as a team to bring good things to this greater community that essentially is, you know, really the same group that the Chamber represents. So I think it's great that we're able to have open dialogue here this morning and to express ourselves and help you to understand where we're coming from. So I am Senator Berthel. I represent the 32nd District, which is 10 towns, as you all know, that straddle the Litchfield County, New Haven County border. I'm in my 4th term in the General Assembly, my 3rd term in the Senate. This session, I am honored to have obtained the rank of Deputy Senate Republican Leader within my caucus. I'm also the ranking member on the Education Committee, the Banks Committee, the Human Services Committee, and a member of the Veterans Affairs Committee. The biggest issues I think facing the legislature, as we've already heard, are taxes. I was very pleased to hear the governor reaffirm his promise to all of us and to the people of Connecticut that his budget will not include any kind of wide or broad sweeping tax increases. I think the challenge for our governor is going to be a supermajority in the state Senate with 24 Democrats who have the power and the ability to overturn a veto And downstairs in the House, we're just a couple of members short on the Democrat side to do exactly the same thing. So I hope, and then I'll conclude, Don. I know we have others that want to introduce themselves, but I'll conclude with this. I hope that common sense will continue to prevail in the legislature when it comes to the application of power by one party over the entire process, from the legislative branch into the executive branch. So I'm hopeful for that. I think we'll have a meaningful session. Our priorities should be almost exclusively focused on COVID recovery for the economy, for our education system, for our small businesses. That is really what we should be focused on, and the proper expenditure of those millions and millions and millions of dollars that we will likely receive from the federal government. We should be extremely careful and should be great watchdogs over all of that as we move forward through the next few months. Thank you, Don.
Thank you, Senator. And as always, thanks for your participation. You're always very active with our chamber. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Representative Gail Mastrofrancesco.
Thank you. Thank you, Don and Lynn and everyone. It really is a pleasure to be here. Like everyone else, I wish we were down meeting at the hotel, having breakfast and chatting face to face, but unfortunately that's not the world we're living in today. But I appreciate it. I love this panel. I love the chambers because I really enjoy talking to our business community. They are the most important piece to the state of Connecticut. They are the ones that create the jobs and make people's dreams come to life. So I think this is really important, and I'm really grateful that we can kind of have this conversation. I am, as I mentioned, State Representative Gail Mastrofrancesco. I am from the 80th District, which covers Wolcott and parts of Southington. I am in my second term. I currently am the ranking member this year on the GAE, which is a Government Administration and Elections Committee. I get to serve on that committee with my other ranking friend, Senator Sampson. A real robust committee. We deal with a lot of election laws, and it's certainly going to be a primary focus, since I am the ranking member on that this year, to make sure that we preserve the integrity of our elections. So that certainly will be a focus. I also sit on the Finance Committee, and for this panel, I actually serve on the Human Services Committee with Senator Berthel, which is wonderful. There's a lot of challenges we have this year on human services due to the response of the governor's regulations on the pandemic. And I often hear people say that due to COVID, we have this. And I always say that it's due to the response of the COVID pandemic that are our challenges, not the COVID itself. We have lived through many other challenges in our lifetime in this country and in this state. And I was always concerned from the beginning. Our 2 weeks of flatten the curve has now turned into a year. And I'm very concerned that this is going to be a never ending battle. And, you know, I often hear the term the new normal, and I got to be honest with you, in my mind, there is no new normal. We need to get back to just the way life used to be. So I am looking forward to the questions, do the best I can to answer them. And thank you very much.
Thank you, Representative. Thank you for your opening comments. We appreciate you being here this morning. Representative Ronald Napoli Jr.
Good morning, Don. It's a pleasure to be here with all of you today. I'm Ron Napoli Jr. I represent the 73rd District. And once again, I'm happy to be here with Eric and Gail this morning. I serve on the as vice chair of the Veterans Committee. I also serve on the Education Committee, which was very important to me because it's important that I bring back vital resources to Waterbury as far as educational cost sharing grants. And the Higher Education Committee, which I asked leadership to place me on because of Post University, who has made significant investments in Waterbury in our downtown area, and as well as NVCC, our local community college that has done a lot for manufacturing. I want to thank the Chamber for having this event and your lobbyist, Armando Paolino. He's a very good asset for us in Hartford. And I think Senator Berthel said it correct before. When we're at the state capitol, we work together, we collaborate, and more importantly, we respect one another. And I look forward to the questions today.
Thanks so much, and we're thrilled to have you here. Thanks for joining us, by the way, Ron. So let's kick over to our questions. And the first question A bill was put forth to establish a single-payer healthcare program for Connecticut. Do you support such legislation? What can the state do to lower premiums and maintain quality care? Open panel, just unmute yourself and chime in when you want to.
Certainly, I'll certainly take a shot at it. A single payer plan is not something that I would support. I think what happens is, you know, when things like that happen, insurance companies are mandated to cover more services, right? Which increases the cost of your coverage. The best thing that they can do, really the state can do in human services, you know, our budget and the state budget, a big chunk of that is human services, right? There's about, I think about over 900,000 people today alone on Husky. And if you think about it, we pay about 41% of that. I think the government pays about 59% of those services. And I think what we need to do is, I believe the insurance, when it comes to insurance, the private industry is the best to serve our people. Services from the state of Connecticut are really meant to be a temporary, to help people get out of a bad way that we're in. We have all experienced times in our life where we needed assistance. I'm sure many have, but it's supposed to be temporary. So we really need to work to get people off of these services by increasing job opportunities, taking regulations off of businesses, reducing taxes. The more that happens, the more jobs there will be out there. Businesses will thrive. They will offer opportunities to people, and they will be able to go on their own. But having a one-payer system for our healthcare certainly is not the answer. You will see many, many jobs lost in the state of Connecticut. We are the insurance capital of the world, actually, here. It is certainly a big concern of mine, and we just need to do all that we can to get people off the services that we have. Think about it, over 900,000 people in Connecticut. What is our population? Is what, 3.5 million? Think about it, over 900,000 people rely on Husky alone in Connecticut. So it certainly is a big problem. And again, the response to the COVID that we have had has increased those numbers because of our response. So just wanted to give my 2 cents on that. Thank you.
Well, we certainly appreciate that. That's what we had here. So thank you for your insight. Any other comments on this particular question?
Yeah, I'll sorry, Ron, I think you were about to speak as well. Let me just say something real quick to follow up what Gail spoke to. I share her sentiments, and I think that what I would add to this with respect to job losses is that, you know, when we take away the ability for the free market, and insurance is certainly part of the free market, and we take away the ability for that free market to operate the way that it's supposed to, we will see job losses. We will actually see ultimately the cost of providing insurance coverage will go up. And I think that that's part of what is missing routinely from the dialogue. I think that there's a sense that those of us who might not support single payer want to leave people without insurance coverage or without services that they require. And I just want to be on record that that's the furthest thing from the truth. I think there are other ways that we can produce meaningful coverage and for everyone who needs it, and to do so in a more cost-effective way. And single payer has been shown in other parts of the country that it becomes very costly and burdensome to administer, and does ultimately create a loss of jobs or cause a loss of jobs. So I think it's something we need to be very careful about. As I said in my opening remarks, we have to be careful as we move through this very interesting time on how we're spending money and what we're doing. Because we have an obligation as well to continue to make and allow businesses to thrive, because businesses are the heart of the economic engine in Connecticut, and we take a lot of shots at businesses, especially as the chamber members know and the chamber itself knows. So that's part of the challenge in all of this.
Thank you, Senator. Representative Knapp, I believe you had a comment.
Yeah, thanks, Don. So just this week, the insurance committee, which I'm not a part of, by the way, had a long public hearing on this that I have scheduled to watch over the weekend, but I plan to do a deep dive on this topic so I can learn more about it throughout the session. Like my colleagues, I have a lot of questions about it, and I look forward to a healthy debate and discourse on these topics.
Thank you very much, Representative. I'm going to field a question from one of our attendees. Thank you for your time and service. I see that the governor's budget does not include a COLA for human service nonprofits. I know the co-chairs of the Appropriation Committee are supporting COLAs for nonprofits because they recognize all the issues our constituents are facing, the value of the people we support and our employees who are over 70% Black or brown, especially during the pandemic. What information can we provide you in order to ensure that our cost-effective and critically essential services can continue with a long overdue COLA, none since 2007? Where do you stand on this issue?
I'll take a shot at answering that. You know, we are truly fortunate in our part of Connecticut, in our region, to be supported by many nonprofits with respect to human services. And this is an issue that comes up every year. There's been a shortfall in funding. I think we're up to some number of around $400 million when you look at the last 10 years or so. And I can tell you that I have previously supported measures to increase that funding for not-for-profits. If we took away the services, if those not-for-profits went out of business and we took away their services went away, the cost to all of us through the replacement services would be astronomical compared to what we could do in properly funding them. And I can tell you that these agencies have, many of them have persisted over the last 12 months. They have not cut services. They have not laid people off. They have increased the cost of doing business, or have experienced, they haven't increased it, they've experienced an increase in the cost of doing business because of the requirement for PPE and all the other mandates that have come down regarding keeping people safe during COVID. So I think it's now is the time for the legislature to act appropriately. Some of these agencies have also come to us and said, we don't need to be fully funded in the first year. Let's roll it out over a number of years just to get us caught up so that we can continue to do what we do so well and to provide those services. So I think this is an issue that's going to have to survive the appropriations process, but it's something that I will certainly make a priority, and I think others will do as well.
Thank you, Senator. Any other comments on that particular question?
Yeah, thanks, Don. I'm sorry, Gail, go ahead.
Go ahead, Ron.
So Don, throughout this pandemic, we have really leaned on our nonprofits, and they have been there for us. We owe it to them to make sure that we can fully fund them to the best that we possibly can. And we all will be part of that dialogue, and we certainly will advocate for them. But the first part of your question was, what can they do to reach out to us? And I think communication is very important. I guess the silver lining here in this virtual world that we're all living in is that you could have meetings with us so we can learn about the services that you are providing, the number of people who are impacted, so we can take that information back to the Appropriations Committee and be a strong advocate for the nonprofits. So I would say, so my advice to them is to reach out to us as often as you possibly can. And all of my colleagues are great, and they'll find a way to get you in our schedule so we can learn more about what you're doing and who you're impacting.
Great, thank you very much for that, Ron. That's a great point to make sure they get in contact with you and work with you for a solution and use their expertise as well. Thanks, Ron. Gail, I think you had a comment?
Yeah, just quickly, I certainly agree with my colleagues. There's no doubt that our nonprofits have been hit the hardest due to the governor's response to COVID. There's many ways to find funding for these nonprofits. If we just look at our budget and cut out any waste that we have, I haven't seen any of that in this budget or the prior budgets of just cutting out waste. There's so much in there that you can shift those funds to the people that need it or the nonprofits. So I think that would certainly be a start. You don't even have to increase taxes. You can or increase the budget. You can just find the waste and shift it to where it's needed the most. Thanks.
I appreciate that. We'll field another question from our attendees. Bob Lamont Jr. chimes in with a kind of a hot topic lately in news. Crime has exploded in the last year, especially in small towns with car theft break-ins. It was a hot topic before the election, yet silent since then. How will this be addressed?
Well,
thoughts on that issue?
Sure, I'll take and thanks to Bob Laban for the question. I think that we have some very serious things to consider and look at as a legislature when we look at what happened during the summer last year, where the legislature was called in to a special session when we had not worked for months. We were called in a special session to pass a sweeping police reform bill. And many of us felt that this was very unnecessary given the moment in time we were in with a pandemic. And many of us felt that this was a reaction to national events. So I think that part of the answer is we have to take a very serious look at a number of different aspects of this. We know, based on what's been reported and what police departments tell us, that a lot of these car break-ins are being committed by youthful offenders. And we need to look at a way to get those youthful offenders off the street. We need to get them to a place where committing crime is not the solution for their daily activities. But when we continue in a environment today where a youthful offender can commit a crime, get arrested, and 3 or 4 hours later, they're back out on the street to go commit another crime. And I can tell you, in Watertown, we had a spat of car break-ins last fall, and the same group of people were arrested 3 and 4 times in the course of 24 hours for committing the same crime. So we have to look at how do we help youth to in part to not be in this predicament where they need to commit crimes. But we also need to be a little tougher on how we handle repeat offenders and any offender. And I think we need to get back to taking a look at the legislation that was passed, again, in the middle of the summer, in the middle of the pandemic, when we were not allowed to do any other work, called in for a special session just for this police reform bill, okay, which was absurd, quite honestly. We need to take a look at that bill. We need to roll back some of the provisions. We need to allow our law enforcement community, which is by every measure filled with wonderful men and women who are doing a very tough job that we have now made even harder because of this bill. We need to allow our law enforcement community to do the job they were trained to do. And I think that will begin to stem some of the crime. And it's not just car crimes or car break-ins. We've seen an uptick in crime in the greater Waterbury area since this bill went into effect. So it's time for us to stop looking at this from a highly emotional state and what's going on across the country, and to look at this for how do we actually affect change right here in greater Waterbury and in Connecticut, and let our law enforcement community do what they are trained and hired to do and they're sworn to do.
Thank you, Senator. Gail?
Can I jump in? I'm sorry, Don, did you say go ahead?
Oh, no, I said, yeah, I said Ron or Gail.
Oh, I'm sorry.
If you want to chime in, you're more than welcome to.
I was chopping at the bit. I missed my chance to talk on the public option. I was trying to navigate another meeting, and I regret that because I had a lot to say. But on this issue, I just want to agree completely with my good friend and colleague, Senator Berthel. But I also want to just expand on it a little bit. I mean, the crime wave we're experiencing has a lot to do with the police accountability bill being passed, and the overall sentiment in our society that has emboldened criminals and really put cops on their heels, where I don't know if they would feel so confident putting themselves out there and risking their lives in situations where it seems to do very little good. I mean, as Eric said, you catch some juvenile for car theft and they're back on the street. They laugh at the police. I mean, you can talk to local police officers and they'll tell you that. But that was the latest in the chain of very bad policies over the last 10 years that really have undermined law enforcement, limited police ability to engage in car chases, the type of force that they can use, the way juveniles are treated in court, the raising of the age of how we treat juveniles. All of these things collectively over time have led to the crime wave that we're currently experiencing. Unfortunately, and I don't want to make this a real partisan issue, but the Judiciary Committee, which has cognizance over this, has shown a real reluctance to want to take on this issue and address it in a way. And there are maybe half a dozen very good policy proposals out there. Some of them are mine and some of them are some of my colleagues that would actually go a long way to reversing this problem. And I'm going to be involved in the next couple of weeks making a real strong push to the public, maybe a petition drive, something like that, to try and force the hand of the Judiciary Committee to actually hear these bills, because this is a real thing. I mean, I've got neighborhood watches in some of my towns that never existed before. You have car thefts 3 times what they were just a couple of years ago. This is a real issue, and I think it's something that is important to put the politics aside and for us to work together to really address.
Understood.
Thanks very much for the time.
Thank you for that impromptu guest appearance on the panel. We appreciate that, Senator. I'm going to kick it over to Gail and Ron if they have any comments on this issue.
Just quickly, I mean, Senator Sampson and Senator Berthel said it perfectly. I couldn't agree more. The police accountability bill has certainly, in my mind, have made it easier for people to commit crime. That our law enforcement officers and the safety of our residents are the most important thing. And we have officers out there now that are very hesitant about, you know, apprehending and doing their job. And quite honestly, I can't blame them. And people are just running rampant. We have a lot of car thefts in our town here in Wolcott. We've seen them in Southington as well. When we have to have neighborhood watches, people basically turning in, you can turn into a vigilante because our police officers' hands are tied because they can't protect us. It's a real problem. So I really hope that the Judiciary Committee will get together and do something about this reform, because it, to me, is very, very concerning. Like I said, the safety of our residents is important, and you have people that are afraid to go shopping. I mean, it's madness, to be quite honest with you. So I think we're living in a third world country in Connecticut. So I'm hoping that that's going to be fixed.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that, Gil. Ron, any comment?
Yeah, thanks. So back in 2019, Senator Hartley and I, and almost the entire Waterbury delegation, met with Chief Fred Spagnola to try to put legislation together to address this. We actually presented in front of the Public Safety Committee, where our bill was actually approved by the Public Safety Committee, but then of course, died at some point throughout the legislature. And we have to go back and look at that bill and try to address it. And we also have to look at youth service programs and which ones aren't working and which ones are working, to try to make sure that we can get our youth back on track.
Thank you very much for that comment, Ron. We've got time for one more question. I'm going to ask all three of you to chime in on it. It's kind of a broad question. Should new federal aid be saved or spent recovering from the pandemic?
All right, I guess I'll kick this one off as well. I think that there should be a little bit of both, Don, and that's not the easy answer out. We're looking at potentially billions of dollars that will flow into the state of Connecticut from Washington, D.C. And the governor has spoken to that in his budget address earlier this week, and spoke a bit to that this morning when he was with us. As I said in my opening remarks, the legislature has a very high level of responsibility as these dollars come in, to be not only to take those dollars and through our existing process to properly apply them and spend them where they are supposed to be spent, but to be watchdogs in other parts of the government, like we already do. We've done a good job because of a budget that was passed a number of years ago in building our rainy day fund. And, we could argue that right now is a rainy day. We're here. We are in a unprecedented times with a worldwide pandemic that certainly, has hit Connecticut just as hard as anywhere else. So I think that there should be a little bit of both in this. We should spend these dollars where it's appropriate to address educational issues. It's appropriate to address restarting our economy and getting our businesses back and functional so that they can contribute what we rely upon them to contribute. But I don't think that we should be in a situation where we drain our rainy day fund and end up at zero. So maybe we bolster the rainy day fund or keep it stable through some of the application of these dollars. But it's a conversation for all 187 of us in conjunction with the executive branch to figure out how that's going to work. And again, as I said earlier, I hope we can apply some good common sense to that.
Thanks, Senator. Appreciate those closing remarks. Gail, any comments?
Oh, sure. I would agree with the good Senator Berthel that there has to be a little bit of both. But you have to remember that that money at some point is going to go away. And whatever they're using that money for, the different departments, that has to be replaced at some point. It's interesting about maybe a few weeks ago, I had sent a letter out to the leadership requesting that the governor does not extend his executive powers. And we need to get back to normal so businesses can thrive and people can go to work. Then I objected to that. And the response I got from the Democrats, the leadership, was that we need to continue to do what we're doing because we are getting federal dollars. So at the expense and the hardship of our businesses, they want to keep them closed, not open fully, because they are getting federal dollars. That's a big problem to me. Somehow we have to open up the state so we do not rely on the federal dollars, because nothing is free, right? Somebody is paying for it, and those funds are going to run out. So when you increase our budget 2% because you got federal dollars, that money's going to go away. Then what happens? So we need to be very careful and make sure we use that money wisely and get the state open for our businesses.
Excellent point. Appreciate that. Representative Napoli.
Yeah, thanks, Don. So I think my colleagues are accurate. I think both is the right answer. Look, I mean, just 3 weeks ago, we had about the state of Connecticut was facing about an $854 million deficit. Today, we face probably a $70 million surplus, which is probably going to be a little bit larger. Some of that federal money has helped put us in a position where we can have a surplus. The state has done a good job. My colleagues will tell you that with the rainy day fund, there's lots of special interests at the Capitol that want to tap into that. And I think the governor wisely chose, not to let that happen. And some of that interest can actually pay down our unfunded pension mandates. So, making sure that we do the right things, that we strive for efficiencies is going to be really important.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your comments. And that's going to wrap up this particular panel. I can't thank the three of you enough for your contributions today. It means a lot to us. And thank you again for participating this morning. And that is going to actually wrap up our last panel for the morning. Hopefully everyone found today informative, and we certainly appreciate all of the attendees' participation and questions. And thanks for bearing with us when we had a couple of hiccups this morning with the technology. It is a new platform that we're trying out. So to wrap up, I'm going to introduce our one and only CEO, Lynn Ward, to close out the morning. Again, thank you very much on behalf of the Waterbury Regional Chamber for everyone's participation today. Lynn, over to you. Lynn, are you there?
I'm sorry about that. Thank you, Don. And thank you so much for leading us as chairman of our Waterbury Regional Chamber Board of Directors. And managing all of today's introductions and questions was not an easy task, and you did it marvelously. So thank you. And thank you to all the panelists, the elected officials, and the speakers that joined us this morning. And special thanks to Governor Lamont for being accessible to our chamber and for joining us this morning. Companies such as St. Mary's Hospital, Trinity Health of New England, Eversource, Post University, AT&T, Webster Bank, Hubbard Hall, Secor Cassidy and McPartland, Paolino Public Affairs, and Waterbury Hospital are chamber members that deserve recognition, and on behalf of our chamber, we thank them for their support. I would be remiss if on behalf of our organization, I didn't offer condolences in the passing of former Senator and State Auditor Rob Kane. Rob was a member of our board of directors, and he was a key leader in so many of our initiatives. He will be greatly missed by our organization and by the community. The Chamber strives to continue to bring you informative, high-value programming to support you and your business. Please don't hesitate to reach out to us, and please, at any time, we are here to help you pass along what we do to your fellow business associates, encourage them to join us. We want to become an even stronger organization for you, our chamber members. Thank you again for joining us and have a great day, everyone.
Take care, everyone. Thank you, Lynn.
Thank you.